I'm here with the amazing, magical Larry Burk, and I sure do have lots of things I want to talk about. And so we'll see what we have time for today. This is probably going to be a to be continued forever kind of thing, but I'm going to introduce you, Larry, by saying everything that you do is my jam and is such interest to the students in my community. So it seems to me the best thing to do is just let spirit lead us where this conversation is going to go today, because between your EFT tapping techniques that are brilliant and effective, the work that you do with dreams, which I'm so into, that and how the body can give us messages and guidance through the dream time, all your work around death, and also your brilliant wisdom that you're sharing about EMFs and how to live in the healthiest way that we can. How we're going to pack all that in, it's definitely going to be the magic. So, would you just like to open everyone with a centering little moment of meditation or guidance so that we can all just kind of get present and be with you? Welcome to the Next Level Healer podcast, Larry.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity. And I was just thinking that I might do a little preview of my Shift Network, the chakra self-healing protocol that's coming up in August and September. And we'll do that just a quick trip through the chakras using the little meditation mantras that I have crafted for each one. So we'll just do a little breathing at each chakra. So start at the base. And the mantra we're going to use is I'm safe. So you just go, I'm safe with your breath a few times. I'm safe. And that's to antidote the fear in the first chakra. So then we'll move to the second chakra and say, I'm free. I'm free. And that's the antidote to the anger in the second chakra. So then we're going to move to third chakra, where the emotional demon is shame, and we're going to use the mantra, I'm enough. I'm enough. I'm And then move to the fourth chakra, which is dealing with grief. And we're going to just say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And then to the fifth chakra, where the issue is lying, and we say, I'm truthful. I'm truthful. I'm truthful. And then moving to the sixth chakra, where the issue is uh, dealing with illusions. And we're going to say, I see clearly. I see clearly. I see clearly. And finally, at the seventh crown chakra, it's the issue is material attachments. So let's use I'm spiritually connected. I'm spiritually connected. I am spiritually connected. So that gets us to the top of the chakras. And then one of my mentors, India Judith, says that now you would go down back through the chakras to manifest what you want in reality. So that's to be continued. So
Beautiful. Oh, what a way to gather up all of our pieces and be here in this moment with you for this sacred space. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that we finally get to share this time together, and you just got back from a trip, and I want to hear about that. And I want to tell all of you that are going to be listening to this, tell them the name of your website, if you will, because this just kind of sums it up, your website.
So letmagichappen.com. And also larryburk.com will get you to the same place. So, and yeah, so I just had a magical trip with my brother. We do this every other year, and we go to Rapid City in South Dakota and visit our Lakota friends on the Pine Ridge Reservation. But we usually, it's kind of like a pilgrimage going out there. So we stopped in Champaign, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska, and finally made it to Rapid City. And along the way, we get to reconnect with a lot of our friends, which is fun. And one of the highlights at the end of the trip was we went and hiked Bear Butte, which is one of the sacred mountains of the Lakota. That's where Frank Fool's Crow had his vision quest. It's ironically 5 miles from Sturgis, which is uh, the Harley Davidson capital of the
Yes.
world. If you've ever had a motorcycle, make a pilgrimage to Sturgis. And we were leaving just a few days before all the bikers were arriving. So,
And no wonder. So it's at a power center. I mean, you've got like a major portal there. So no wonder that became like the place that they all want to gather. That's so cool. So this is with your brother that you connected me to that is into Serpent Mountain too, right?
right. Hmm.
Okay.
From
And
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
you guys, we connected over Serpent Mound. I guess the last time we got to talk, I hadn't taken that group on the retreat yet, right? We
Yeah,
talked.
you were getting ready. I think it was in April or something like that.
Yes, yes, we went right before the spring equinox, and so we're getting ready to go back again
Okay.
in September. Another weekend opened, and it's just so strategic with a lunar eclipse, and it's prep for the next equinox. And so when that weekend opened up, I was like, okay, looks like we're going back to do some more.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, I took you with me into my Qigong class that I teach here in the little town where I live. I teach this Qigong class, and these people are just amazing. They love their Qigong energy practice. And I screen shared from my phone and put your YouTube on and did an EFT tapping sequence where I directed all of them to your YouTube channel.
Wow.
Said, you guys, this is like the elevated version of when we tap in our temple prep exercises, which is part of your Qigong prep to
Mm.
tap, 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 like that's ancient and we do it in there. And I was like, now you want to really elevate and refine that you've been doing in here. Watch this and follow this teacher and learn from him. And so they were all very, very excited about your YouTube channel.
Wow. Well, speaking of Qigong, I've been doing there's a teacher here in the Triangle named Jay Dunbar, the Magic Tortoise School, and he taught me the 5 animal frolics 30 years ago, and I've been doing them every morning since, just for 5 minutes. And then the 5 animals correspond to the 5 elements. So it's the start with the deer for the wood element, and then the crane for the fire element, the monkey for the earth element, the tiger for the metal element, and the bear for the water element, and just do those every day. So
I love that. And it is so shamanic, isn't it? It's like no matter what part of the earth these practices came from that are energy cultivation practices, they were being taught by God's creation, all around. And so it's just like the way that it all weaves together. Because I tell them in this little Qigong class at the Y, I'm like, you're doing energy work. You're doing your own inner alchemy. Like it's so much more. And it looks like what you're doing with the chakra healing work that you're doing. So your shift network class is that coming up? When is that happening? Because a lot of these people are probably going to want to know about it if we sync up with the timing of this interview.
yeah, it's the class actually starts on August 12th, so that's a Tuesday, and it's going to be Tuesday every Tuesday evening for October, August, and September. from 8 p.m. Eastern time to 9:30, and then we're just going to work our way through the chakras, starting with the first chakra on the 12th, and it'll be doing a lot of experiential work, and the sequence that I use for the chakras is do a little bit of meditation like we just did using those particular mantras, and then do expressive writing for 5 minutes after that. Once, usually when you sit with the meditation for 5 minutes, disruptive thoughts are going to come up and interrupt you, and all the reasons why you're not safe, and then you just write those down for 5 minutes on a sheet of paper, and that's expressive writing. It's not journaling because you're going to actually destroy that page when you're done. When you're done getting out of your body, and you can actually tap on it, then we're going to get rid of it. Either shred it like Yoda sitting on my paper shredder here, or you can burn it. And I recommend burning it if you're writing something to someone who's passed over, and you're like sending a prayer to heaven. And then after that, we do the EFT on whatever had the biggest charge on it, and then an EFT is like deleting a malware program out of your system. If you think about every traumatic thing that happened as a malware program that gets downloaded into your acupuncture meridians, uploaded into your brain through your nervous system, and then gets stored in your limbic system in your brain. And there's a file up there for every bad thing that ever happened. So there's a story about what happened, there's a picture about it, and there's this program that'll run you back to the original experience. And so what you want to do is just in a controlled fashion start the program running by repeat the file name, and you just start tapping on the acupuncture points, and it's like you're uninstalling the program by hitting the delete key over and over again. And then when you remove the program, then you put in a new program that you want using self-hypnosis. So that's sort of the 4-step process that I'm going to be doing in the chakra course. And there's a uh, online event that's been happening since Saturday, which you can find through my website. And that's just a 1 hour pre-recorded interview I did with Stephen Danan, who's the director of the Shift Network. So that gives you a little summary of what's happening for the course. So, and you can find that link on my website under upcoming events here, things like that. So
I definitely am going to share this unpolished, just raw footage with my community so that they can get in there, so that they can go ahead and take advantage of learning this with you, because deleting the malware, I mean, that's brilliant. And do you find this? I want to know how you got into EFT. But for me, with EFT, it's so powerful and it's so simple. Do you find that people think, well, that can't work because it doesn't take that much to do it, but in the doing of it, like you said, you're reprogramming this sophisticated technology. How did you begin to work with EFT tapping?
yeah, and just in terms of the explanation for how it works, the technical neuroscience term for it is memory reconsolidation. That every memory is only as old as the last time you looked at it. So if you it's just like a computer file. You open up a file, you mess around with the file, and you save it again. It's not the same memory. So that's why that's an important concept. And I got into it because I'd been trained in hypnosis and acupuncture. And in 2002, Cheryl Richardson came to our big integrating mind, body, and spirit medical practice conference at Duke, where I was one of the program directors. And she said, "Oh, you're doing acupuncture, you're doing hypnosis. How about EFT?" And I'd never heard of it. So she said, "Oh, just go into the website," which at the time was emofree.com, download the 80-page manual, and you can start doing it. And most people learn EFT online. Either nowadays it's through YouTube videos, but back then it was just the manual online. And so I read the manual in 2 nights, and I came in to teach my stress management class at Duke for undergrads on that Tuesday. And I had a student who, when I shared the information about EFT, she said, "Oh, I think I need that." And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "I have hives all over my body, big itchy hives." And I thought, "Okay, do you have an allergy to something?" "No, no allergy." Well, what happened? 2 weeks ago, I had a car accident on the Jersey Turnpike. Lost control of my car in the rain, hit a telephone pole, airbag went off, and I didn't get physically injured, but I've had these terrible hives ever since. So I said, "Oh, okay, well." And I said, I just learned this on the internet. I'm sure it'll work. So I had no idea. But she said, oh, I have to get to my next class in 25 minutes. So I did a Jedi mind trick. I just said, it won't take that long. And all we did was follow it was a one-page cheat sheet. It had the instructions on it and just said, find the phrase and then give a rating of 0 to 10 as to the subjective units of distress. And in other words, 0, you don't feel anything at all when you say that phrase. 10 is the worst thing that ever happened to you. And she said, scary car accident. And that was about a 6, she said. But it looked worse than that. So I said, add some more emotional words to that. She said, scary. Thought I was going to die, car accident. I was like, okay, what's that? That was an 8.
Mm.
And we went and just followed the instruction. We tapped on one side and tapped on the other. Took 2 minutes and it went from an 8 to a 4. I was like, wow, this is actually working. And then I read the instructions and said, you can either repeat the same process again or find a different aspect of the emotional issue. I said, well, what's worse than almost dying in a car accident? She said, total my dad's car. Ooh. So I said, okay, well, what's the phrase for that? Guilty about my dad's car. And that was an 11 out of 10. So, and we just tapped on that. Guilty about my dad's car, guilty about my dad's car, and went down to a 2, and she looked a lot more relaxed. I said, gave her the cheat sheet and said, just take this with you. Don't take any more medicine because she had taken some Benadryl. It made her drowsy and she couldn't study. And as soon as she took it helped the hives, but as soon as she quit taking it, the hives all came back and she was too itchy to study. So she was in a difficult place. So she just said, okay, no more meds. I'll just take the sheet and tap and she said, came back 2 days later. She said, every time I felt a little itchy, I did some more tapping and that didn't take any more medicine. And I tapped on all my other car accidents. Like, ooh, didn't know about that. And I had no idea. And she figured it out by herself. She said, ooh, it worked for that car accident. I got other car accidents I need to deal with. And that's sort of when your inner healer takes over. And that's often a common theme with trauma is you have one car accident, what happens? Well, you never regain your confidence in driving. You wind up attracting another one. It's like the reverse law of attraction until you finally clear out the original one.
Mm.
And
Good.
then the same thing is true though of anything like one bad relationship, you know, it could be your father when you were growing up, and then your first boyfriend, then your husband, and da, da, da. It goes on like that. So yeah.
And isn't it so, it's so much deeper than it can seem. I mentor a lot of coaches, a lot of people who are teaching and leading in other ways. And I almost feel like I have to bring them back to the tapping because it literally puts the power in your hands,
Hmm.
literally in your hands. Like it's so, the simplicity of it, but also very shamanic that it's inspired action. When people are used to being all up in the ethers about things, even when they can see energetically patterns and all these programs running and all that kind of stuff. But it's like this is like giving you the power in your own body and your own action steps to do something about it in the moment. You
Yeah,
you
yeah.
touched on where you were and when you were doing a conference in a hospital. Will you give my community your street cred? Like I talked about like all these amazing energy awareness things you do, chakra teachings and death and dreams. Give them your other side. You're a beautiful bridge of both
Okay.
of both worlds.
So yeah, back in the 80s, I finished my radiology residency right when MRI scans were being developed. So got on the ground floor of that in Pittsburgh and did some of the original research on MRI of the knee and MRI of the shoulder, which at that time was alternative medicine. It was like people really didn't believe you could look inside the knee and the shoulder with MRI, but we proved that you could, and then it became obviously the popular gold standard way of looking at your joints. So that was 40 years ago. And I read MRI scans for 40 years and worked at uh, University of Pittsburgh, University of Pennsylvania, Thomas Jefferson, and then came to Duke in 1993. And then I figured out when I retired in 2021 from radiology that I'd read 60,000 MRI scans. I thought that was enough for one lifetime. So and of course, along the way, one of the things that inspired me to explore integrative medicine was a lot of my patients were claustrophobic. if you've ever been in an MRI scan, you know that can be very confining and very troubling for some people. And there's even one patient who wrote a poem ode to the MRI, describing it as a coffin that makes noise. So
Oh no.
yeah, pretty graphic, and so but the hypnosis worked great compared to my other option was giving people a lot of Valium, which they didn't care where they were if you got enough Valium, but unfortunately sometimes they would stop breathing. So kind of need to breathe when you're in the scanner for an hour. So
And you've written several books, right? How many books have you
yeah.
written and
So the
on what?
first book was Let Magic Happen: Adventures in Healing with a Holistic Radiologist in 2012, and that just sort of chronicled my journey from conventional medicine into holistic medicine. Then and then I had experience in 2000 around the time that book came out. I was getting exposed to several friends of mine who had had dreams about their breast cancer that you know, they had no physical symptoms, they had no imaging studies. They had a dream that told them they had breast cancer, and so uh, I'd never heard of this before, and I thought, well, other women must be having the same experience. So I did a survey and published a paper on with 18 women who had similar experiences from around the world, and then they wrote a book, Dreams That Can Save Your Life: Early Warning Signs of Cancer and Other Diseases, and that's been and that inspired me to start doing dream diaries with all my coaching clients. And oftentimes you get exactly the information you need as to what to tap on and what to work on from a recent dream. So that's been kind of magical in that regard. And then the last year, well, actually for the last 6 years, I've run a Facebook group for frozen shoulder healing, which sort of gave me an opportunity to pull a lot of these things together into one uh, focus on a particular illness, which frozen shoulder is a very exasperating condition, most common in menopausal women, uh, worse in diabetics because they have inflammation from high sugar in their bodies, and the lack of estrogen increases the inflammation. And then if you have an emotional trauma on top of it, the anger gets stuck in your shoulder and that manifests as angry red lining of your joint, and it can go on for a couple of years. And the women, it's most common in women. I've had it myself, and it's not much fun. And the women describe it as worse than childbirth. So I thought, okay. And so that book I just wrote back in March, which is Frozen Shoulder Healing: Diagnostic Methods and Treatment Options. So those are all, you can find those all on my website.
I love it that you are both, that you have the medical background and then you've come into seeing just the multidimensional aspect of these patients that you work with, your coaching clients, and you're able to help them just full spectrum and also inspire others because it's not to me it's just such an inclusive time to be sharing and helping this world of like, no, it's not this or that. I can't even, it blows my mind that you were at that innovative time of the MRI and people weren't even believing. People weren't believing in an MRI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just goes to show us like how much are our minds going to be blown still by what we don't understand is possible yet, you know?
Yeah, and I'm reflecting back on medical school and realize I was fascinated by well, anatomy as a radiologist, obviously, but physiology and all the elegant way that the body sends signals and gets messages about what's going on inside and responds to the external environment. But then when I got to pharmacology, they completely lost me because it was all about interrupting those elegant signaling pathways and anti this and anti that. And the only drug I ever learned to use was Valium for MRI. And otherwise, I've never written a prescription in my life. So, and well, and I've had my own share of bad experiences with taking pharmaceuticals on my own. The first time I had shoulder pain, they put me on Indocin, which is a super powerful non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. And after 3 or 4 days, didn't really get any relief from my shoulder, but I started getting mouth ulcers to the point where I could hardly eat, and I had to like just push the pills through my ulcers to get them done before I realized, oh, wait, I think the ulcers are coming from the pills. And it's
What am
like,
I doing?
what am I doing? Yeah. So that was one of my first experiences with, side effects. And so the message I have in the chakra course, I realized they asked me, so what's the essential messages? Well, all your symptoms are sacred messages from your soul. And you can either get the message and make a course correction, or you can do what Western medicine would have you do and just shoot the messenger, suppress the symptom, and then get worse side effects and have no healing in the process. And then the other layer to that is if you treat your dreams the same way as your symptoms, the dream symbols that you're getting, the messages you're getting there, actually are giving you information ahead of time, which may prevent you from getting a symptom physically. It's like, so if you really want to be ahead of the game, keep a dream diary, ask a question every night about your health, and expect an answer back from the dream world, and which can help you. That's the best preventative medicine there is. So
So, what is your nightly prep like before dream state? Do you have a specific question that you write down, or do you just form a question with intent before drifting off to sleep?
I write it down and just think about what's on my mind right now that I want an answer to. And it could be a health thing, it could be a work thing, relationship issue. And the only secret is you can only ask one question a night, because whatever dream you get in response to that is in responding to that question. So,
So, the dreams and the tapping and all these huge like tools and clues about how to come back into wholeness and vibrancy and radiance, it all weaves together. And one thing that I've been wanting to get more of your perspective on is death, because I see that you are death positive in the way that you teach. And my death doula community is just gonna love your work because you're coming at it from that magical place of these are sacred moments. And so what all do you have to share with my death doula community? Because what I find is people who are comfortable with the dying process are usually really fun. They have a
mm.
great sense of humor and they're alive. They're very much alive because they're okay with the dying. So what kind of messages and what kind of teachings do you have around the dying process?
I guess the the irony is that it seems like every time I get over the target on an important topic, I give a TED talk and it gets banned. So and I did that with the dreams that can save your life back in 2016. It was well received when I gave the talk, but the initial launch of the video had 10,000 views, and then TED pulled it off their website and said, no, 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 this violates our community standards. And it's like, but I used peer-reviewed literature and,
What
and
was
scientific.
it? I mean,
It
what
was,
was their reasoning on
well,
why?
oh, they said the you know, conventional, medicine does not acknowledge the value of dreams, basically, So, so that got the only place you can watch it now is on my website. And when I got inspired to do talk on the spiritual alphabet soup of death and dying, which came about through my involvement with the Ryan Research Center here in Durham and also the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Um, as I often joke, when I go to dinner with my friends who are before one of these meetings, I'm sitting around the table and I realize, oh, let's see, I've got 3 or 4 healers here, and I'm the only one who hasn't died. It's like, oh, okay. So, because obviously that's one of the traits of having had a near-death experience is you tap into your latent healing abilities, which you might not have realized you had before you had the NDE. And so I thought, well, what can I put together of that whole spectrum of what the TED Talk theme was liminal states. So liminal states of death and dying are NDE, most people are familiar with. The second one was um, NDA, which is nearing death awareness, which is, as people get close to the end of life, they start having visions and dreams of often deceased relatives. and sometimes referred to as the welcoming committee. And if you just simply acknowledge that as a real phenomenon for them, it makes their transition much smoother and more comfortable. And then um, after death communication uh, is actually the most common experience people have. Half the people in the world have had experience of some dream or some sign from a deceased relative or friend. And the final one is is the most interesting and the most rare, which is the shared death experience, where if you're an intuitive person at the bedside of someone who's dying, sometimes they'll see them leave the body, and then actually sometimes they'll leave their own body themselves and have an out of body experience and go with them into the tunnel. When they get to the threshold, they're sent back and the other person goes on.
Hmm.
It can also happen remotely where you are having a dream about someone who, as they're dying, and it's like they came and visited you to say goodbye.
Oh yeah. There was a person at the YMCA where I was telling you where I teach a couple of weeks ago who crossed over right in the middle of a exercise class for elderly people, and then some of my qigong students saw saw the
Wow.
light, and yeah, really amazing experience for them since they were right there with them. Um, so you've done a really good talk if it gets banned, right?
I'm afraid so. And I think that the issue with that talk, which I gave at Duke, and again, the audience loved it. And then I waited for it to come out on YouTube, and it never did. And I said, "What happened?" Well, that never made it out of the starting block on the TED website. And eventually, they put it up later, just on YouTube without on any connection to their site. So again, the only place you can really find that is on my website. And I used they cautioned me, the students who were organizing it said, "Oh, just use the peer-reviewed literature." So I found like 6 scientific articles to support what I did, including one for after-death communication, which is by one of the leading researchers in the UK on parapsychology. He cleverly got an article on after-death communication published in the psychiatric literature by calling them after death hallucinations.
Whoa.
Yeah, thought
Oh,
that was funny.
I
And
am so glad you're bringing the change. You are the change, and it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to see you. And you know what I got to say about you? When I started delving into your site and looking at all the things that you teach and all the things that you share, I had this compassion for my students when they say they get overwhelmed at the amount of content that I
mm,
share. And I didn't really get that until I was in your site and I was like, wait a minute, like I want to learn all this stuff. Like I don't even know where to begin because I have a mentorship program and that's been like one of the complaints sort of. And it's not really a complaint because it's good. It's like it's just a lot. And so do you have people start at a certain point if they come into your vast living library of everything that you've curated? Where would you say my community should start to check out your work?
well, I think the obvious place is just watch the 2 TED Talks that are there. They're 16 minutes, and I managed to do all 4 of those death-related acronyms in 12 minutes. So I covered all that in 12 minutes, and then I've been blogging for 10 years, so there's 50 or 60 blogs there that you can look through, whatever sparks your interest. So,
Oh my goodness. It's just there's so much. And just the tapping. You have tapping sequences for so many diseases, chronic conditions, emotional fears, the chakras. I mean, I've gone into all that and I was like, I want to do all this. I totally know how my students feel about me, but it's cool, isn't it? Because when you love what you're doing and you're just so excited to share the things that you've uncovered, the things that you've learned that work, which is all it is
yeah.
the shamanic principle of effectiveness is the measure of truth. These are the things that we have found
Well,
are
I've never heard that quote before. I like that. Okay.
yeah. And so it's like these are the things that work for you. I mean, what do you in your own life, like what have you noticed with EFT tapping or dream work? Where's there just been like a huge win or shift for you yourself with the work that you do?
Yeah, I think um, ever since college, my uh, drive to do first conventional medicine and then holistic medicine has been really centered around my own physical health problems. And mostly it's been musculoskeletal, and I'm a musculoskeletal radiologist. So I had tendonitis in my knee when I was a pole vaulter in college, which frustrated me for 2 years. I had a sprained ankles and a collapsed arch in my foot. So all those were things that motivated me to want to be an orthopedic surgeon when I went to med school. And and then I found out I didn't like being in the operating room, dressed up in the gown and all that, and it just wasn't for me. So I wound up, the second best choice was to become a musculoskeletal radiologist and specialize in sports medicine. So that, and then along the way, I had, when I was developing the MRI, the shoulder protocols, that's when I got my left shoulder pain. It was like, oh. And so I spent 20 years working with my left shoulder, had surgery, had the whole works, and nothing worked for many, many years. But it motivated me to explore everything. And then when I finally got divorced from my first wife, my shoulder pain started going away, and I realized, oh, just had repressed anger for 20 years, and I never understood that concept. And then 5 or 6 years later, I started getting the frozen shoulder on the other shoulder. And that was the time when I was having a lot of political anger. And one of the setups for frozen shoulders, when you have anger, you can't do anything about. And so I realized, well, I was really angry in 2006 uh, when George Bush got reelected and we were in the Iraq War, and I was angry about Dick Cheney. And V for Vendetta came out, which was the movie, which is a parody of the whole Bush
Oh,
administration, which
yeah.
triggered my shoulder to get even worse. And then when I realized what was going on, I had just been to an Edgar Casey conference down at the Virginia Beach, and I'd done some gentle yoga the Edgar Casey way, and my shoulder started hurting. Oh no! And by the time on the way home from the conference, I realized, oh, it's starting to lose my range of motion. I'm getting a frozen shoulder. So I went to my favorite local spiritual intuitive healer. I went for I wanted to get some energy healing from her, which I'd never had before. She's only done readings for me before. So I go there and say, I think I need some energy healing. She said, well, how about if I check out your past lives related to this shoulder? I'm like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
She says, I see where you, you were stoned and poisoned in the dark ages for your righteous anger and unjust authority figures. And
Ah.
then she goes, you want to do that again this lifetime? I said, I don't think so. So I started tapping on Dick Cheney and the Spanish Inquisition, and my shoulder got better. So,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. So, what is your birthday? I'm so interested in your astrology. Is that just
November 28th. Yeah.
all right?
So
No.
that's Sagittarian.
Okay, you're sad. Yeah. I just I connect and relate to you on so many levels. Like, the way that we instantly just connected over Serpent Mound and we're just like, blah, 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 like, yeah, yeah. And when you were just out there, so you're so fresh off this whole Lakota sacred site experience. Is there anything from that is just still rippling out in you? Any highlights or high points that you want to share with my
Well,
community about that?
since I went to Bear Butte and I'd read a couple books about Frank Foolscrow a few years ago when I first started going out there, and I did pick one of his quotes to highlight in my first book, which was the concept that he shared was, if I become like a hollow bone, there's no limit to what the Great Spirit can do through me. So being a hollow bone is a conduit for the Spirit. And that was like, and I got to see a nice bust of Frank Fool's Crow there at the Bear Butte Park headquarters. And that was amazing.
Oh, hollow bone. That's such a foundational piece of what I teach. So everybody in my community, when they watch this, they'll be like, hollow bone, yes, this is our people right here. One thing that I work with a lot in mentoring healers, practitioners of different kinds is imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Yeah, and I wondered if you'd ever done or perfected an EFT tapping sequence on that, or if you would even take us through one that's super simple, because a lot of these healers who are just brilliant and they came here to usher in these new ways and help the earth and help the citizens of the earth, they really have been up until now held back a lot in shining very brightly and sharing their unique medicine. So it's like any kind of tapping protocol that would uncover that. And I wrote it down. What did you say? Delete the malware program, for imposter syndrome from those lifetimes, whatever the stories are. We're in a new phase now. What would you, if someone came to you as a client, how would you help them with that?
I'm thinking that this might speak to the third chakra in particular, which is about self-esteem, and it develops when you're in preschool and just starting to get a little ego, and of course, what do the authority figures say? They say, "Who do you think you are? You're too big for your britches," that sort of thing. And so the message that you're getting is you're not good enough.
Yes.
And the opposite of that is I'm good enough. So that's probably worth tapping on, and uh, I'll be doing some of that during the chakra protocol
Okay.
course. But yeah, we can just find your sore spot, and we'll go through that in 5 minutes here. So you find your collarbone in the middle of your collarbone, and work your way down onto the ribs. And in between the ribs, there's this achy spot in the muscles. And you just pick whichever side hurts the most, whichever one. And just say, even though I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. So it's a paradoxical affirmation. I'll just say it 2 more times. Even though I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely accept myself. And deep breath in and out. And when you do the the breathing, breathe in a different color on the in breath, a healing color on the in breath, and on the out breath, breathe out whatever color feels like you're not enough. I'm an imposter, whatever it is. And we'll just start tapping on that phrase and repeat it. I'm not good enough to be a healer. Side of your eye, and you tap like 5 or 6 times. I'm not good enough to be a healer. Under your eye, I'm not good enough to be a healer. Under your nose, I'm not good enough to be a healer. On your chin, I'm not good enough to be a healer. Collarbone, I'm not good enough to be a healer. Under your arm, I'm not good enough to be a healer. And below your breast, I'm not good enough to be a healer. And top of your head, I'm not good enough to be a healer. And deep breath in and out. And then we're going to switch hands. The next side is the opposite, sort of the ophelize step. So tap over here and say, I'm not good enough to be a healer. Side of your eye. No matter how much training I get, I'll never be good enough. We sort of exaggerate. I remember those times growing up when I felt like I just could never be good enough to please my parents. Underneath your nose. Now I have doubts about my abilities. Chin, I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake. Collarbone, I won't be perfect. No one will want to work with me. So now you're kind of getting down to the bottom here. And then below your breast, say, nothing I can do will make a difference. And then top of your head, just go, I'll never be good enough to be a healer. And deep breath in and out. You kind of want to go as low as you can on that step. And then the next step is a neutralize step. We're going to go back and forth and argue with yourself, basically. So start with, I'll never be good enough to be a healer. Side of your eye, say, of course I'm good enough. Under your eye, say, I think I'm an imposter. Underneath your nose, but I'm really, really well trained. Chin, but you still don't have, I still don't have what it takes. Collarbone. What if I do have what it takes? Well, you'll just never have the confidence. But what if I did have the confidence? I'm curious to see just how successful I can be. So that you should be completely confused by the end of that step because you're arguing with yourself for a couple minutes. And then finally, we're going to switch to the positive aspect. And now it becomes like self-hypnosis. So start with, I want emotional freedom now. I am definitely good enough. I'm letting go of all those authority figures from my past. I'm focusing on what I really want. I'm going to be an effective healer, and it's going to be easier than I thought. I'm going to let the energy flow through me like a hollow bone, and there's no limit to what the Great Spirit can do through me. And most of all, I'm going to have fun doing it. Breath in and out. Now you just let the breath flow in and out, a little deeper and a little faster. Get your favorite color flowing through all your meridians, out your arms, down your legs, and shake your hands down by your side as your favorite color comes down your fingers, dripping out your fingers. And then just scan your body when you're done shaking and just check to see, is there any place where that not good enough feeling is still stuck? And if so, just breathe your favorite color down into that region. Then go to your favorite healing place out in nature, wherever that might be. Spend a minute or so there and use all your senses. What's it feel like? What's it smell like? What's it sound like? And imagine looking down at the ground around your feet and looking for a healing object you can pick up and hold in your hand. And in this healing object, it'll be your magic recycling tool. You can just let go of any feelings of not enough or imposter into that object and just release it back to the earth as a little ritual. And then the final step is to just invite a healing spirit guide to come visit you and give you some advice. And I recommend one of three choices of beings from the other side, either a wise ancestor, a spirit animal, or an angel. Take the first being who volunteers and see if they have any words of wisdom for you. And then take what they've given you and project yourself into the future when you're healed, when you know that you're enough, and imagine a future self picture of you and put a picture frame around it with a color that represents your confidence in being able to do your healing work. And breathe that color into your body. Put that picture frame up on the wall so you can tap into it anytime you need to. And then stretch and come on back and bring those images and feelings back with you. Good.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. And we didn't even get into color breathing. I love that you teach that as well. You guys are just going to have to go find Larry Burk on the shift. Now, how long can they register for that, Larry?
Well, the class starts on the 12th. Apparently, they just told me that you can register anytime during the course beyond the 12th because it's going to be recorded and you can just go back and watch the first episode if you missed it. So, yeah.
Great, great. Because I want them, whenever they find this interview and they spend some time with us, I want them, when they go, oh my gosh, I want to learn all this, because I see this twofold benefit of studying with you. It's great for our own internal ecosystem and furthering our own healing journey. And it gives them all these tools in their toolbox for the clients that they serve and teach both.
Yeah. I'll mention that on the website, what's posted there is under upcoming events is the online video from Saturday is there. But if you click on that, there's a recording there. If you missed the event on Saturday, then it's going to be an encore on Tuesday. But if you just click on the link, you can watch it at any time, and then that'll give you the information about the course in August.
Okay. So I have a couple of things that I'm hoping you will play with me and bring the magic in. Someday I would love to do a Q&A with my students.
Wouldn't that be
And
good?
like they're just gonna fall in love with you. And it's like once they have a lot of questions from all the generous education that you share on your site, I'd love to set that up. And we're going to do a Death Doula Summit in
Mm,
November on the Day of the Dead.
wow.
And I would love for you to be a presenter and educator in that death party that we're going to have because we're totally bringing in the sacredness and the celebration and the beauty, bringing it back to death in our culture. I know you got to go.
Well, I'll have to ask my wife's permission for that one because that's her birthday. So she's a Day
Oh,
of the Dead girl. So and but the Q&A is a great idea because I like doing, if you've heard of AMA, ask me anything, that kind of
yes.
thing. Yeah,
Yes. We didn't even get into EMFs, and there's a wealth of training and knowledge that you have on your site about EMF strategies, right? To keep us healthy and make
yeah,
us feel empowered. Where all can they find you? Do you have a Facebook, all the places they can connect with you?
yeah. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn and X and Facebook, and I have a Larry Burk MD coaching page, and then website's probably the simplest, just larryburke.com or letmagichappen.com. And if anybody has got a frozen shoulder, join the frozen shoulder healing group. And
Oh man, it's time has gone like this because you know how it is when you meet kindred spirits, it's like there's just no time. And so I'm honoring that we have to wrap up and you got something you got to go do. But yeah, I hope we can continue this beautiful conversation. And I thank you so much for being with us today.
excellent. And next time I'll have a glass of water so my voice doesn't sound so gravelly, but it's all a throat chakra question anyway. So, and next time I'll wear my Bear Butte t-shirt. So,
I loved your Serpent Mound shirt. And the crazy thing is, in my mentoring community this morning, this very morning when I went live with them, I said, "It's solar plexus today. Just I'm really feeling like we're clearing out, and transforming our solar plexus."
wow.
So that was what I was saying to them before I got on with you. So so many blessings to you and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.